άρχισε η οδύσσιά μου. Ο γουλιάδος μου, ο Ερίκος ο Σεβίλιας, ο οποίος ήταν στο Auschwitz πέθανε με τον αριθμό.
Ερίκος Σεβίλιας από την Αθήνα.
The testimonies of the first soldiers who entered the camps, known as the liberators, are important eyewitness accounts of the mass atrocities committed against the Jews of Europe by the Nazis and their collaborators. Hardened combat veterans, the American GIs were used to death. Many had been fighting for years, but they had never seen killings of civilians on the massive scale they discovered. Their first encounters with Holocaust survivors at this unique moment in time give us an essential and intensely human perspective on the difference between military war and genocide.
Leon Bass was 20 years old and was among the first US soldiers to arrive at Buchenwald.
I can never forget that day, because when I walked through that gate, I saw in front of me what I call the walking dead. I saw human beings that had been beaten, had been starved, had been tortured. They'd been denied everything. They had skeletal faces with deep-set eyes. Their heads had been clean-shaved, and they were standing there and they were holding on to one another just to keep from falling. I saw the clothing of little children, the little children that didn't survive. Up against the wall, there were mounds of clothing. I saw the caps, sweaters, stockings and shoes, but I never saw a child.
Harry Mogen was a Jewish refugee from Nazi persecution. He reached the United States and became a soldier and a liberator.
And you saw women on the floor, on wooden pallets. When I say women, you saw skeletons. Rags hanging on them, no shoes, bones instead of faces. And the stench was so horrible. It's hard to describe.
What the American soldiers found at Ohrdruf, a subcamp of Buchenwald, was so grisly that General Dwight D. Eisenhower, then the supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Europe, together with Generals Patton and Bradley, arrived to inspect the camp for themselves. After his visit, Eisenhower cabled,
"The things I saw beggar description. The visual evidence and the verbal testimony of starvation, cruelty, and bestiality were so overpowering as to leave me a bit sick. I made the visit deliberately in order to be in a position to give first-hand evidence of these things, if ever, in the future, there develops a tendency to charge these allegations merely to propaganda."
These words are now engraved on the wall of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C.
For sitting in it. She was really
The significance of the museum's collection is that it is the most comprehensive collection of Holocaust-era artifacts in the world. It helps us tell the story, the comprehensive story of Holocaust survivors and victims who witnessed the events of the Third Reich. A number of vaults are created throughout the building to serve different types of materials needs so that we can have both the security within the different vaults as well as preservation with fire suppression systems, temperature, humidity controls. In the vault that you're standing, the personal artifacts vault, we have approximately 18,000 individual items in storage. This vault can more than double the capacity that we currently have. The collection is estimated to double in size in the next 10 to 15 years. The artifacts have come from all over the world. They have been primarily donated to us from Holocaust survivors, first-hand witnesses to the event. The sewing machines that you see were used in concentration camps to create both Nazi uniforms as well as concentration camp uniforms. They help us tell the story of slave labor, forced labor, of the individuals that were incarcerated in the concentration camps.
On the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
To those in the audience who have served America in uniform, our country eternally thanks you. We are proud and grateful to be joined today by veterans of the Second World War who liberated survivors from the camps. Your sacrifice helped save freedom for the world, for the entire world.
U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Horace Evers was among the first Allied soldiers to enter Adolf Hitler's abandoned Munich quarters. He discovered Hitler's personal stationery. He crossed out Adolf Hitler, inserted his own name, and wrote a letter home about the camp he had seen just outside of Munich.
Dearest Mom and Lou, a railroad runs alongside the camp, and as we walked toward the boxcars on the track, I thought of some of the stories I previously had read about Dachau, and was glad of the chance to see for myself, just to prove once and for all that what I had heard was propaganda. But no, it wasn't propaganda at all. If anything, some of the truth had been held back. In 2 years of combat, you can imagine I have seen a lot of death. Furious deaths, mostly. But nothing has ever stirred me as much as this. The first boxcar I came to had about 30 what were once humans in it. Bodies on top of each other. No telling how many. And then into the camp itself. Filthy barracks. How can people do things like that? I never believed they could. Until now.
As American troops approached Dachau, they saw ghastly evidence of recent mass prisoner executions. Anger led some to shoot SS guards still at the camp, but Dachau not only fueled their rage, it also aroused their compassion.
This is the house in Lüneburg where Himmler committed suicide. In that room, the most despicable of all German criminals contrived to take poison after arrest. There he is, powerless at last. Powerless to blackmail, to torture, or to murder. An ignominious end to the most evil life recorded in history. Here's the phial of cyanide found in his kit. It's similar to the one he kept concealed in his mouth, the one that killed him in 15 minutes in spite of everything the doctors could do. When he saw the game was up, he took the quick way out. It's a pity for the world that somebody didn't do it for him when he was born. For Heinrich Himmler, that's almost a kindly epitaph.
So sind wir angetreten und marschieren nach unabänderlichen Gesetzen. Wir gehen den Weg in eine ferne Zukunft und wünschen und glauben, wir möchten nicht nur sein die Enkel, die es besser ausfochten, sondern darüber hinaus die Ahnen spätester für das ewige Leben des deutschen und germanischen Volkes notwendiger Geschlechter.
SS-leader Himmler asked Germans.
Wir hatten ja immer praktischerweise dieses personifizierte Böse in der Familie, Heinrich Himmler, der wirklich alles Böse auf sich vereinigt hat, sodass alle anderen ganz locker in seinem Schatten verschwinden konnten und automatisch eigentlich als kleine Fische erscheinen mussten neben ihm. Und das hatte eben lange zur Folge oder hat bis heute in Teilen der Familie zur Folge, dass nicht kritisch hinterfragt wird, was haben die anderen Familienmitglieder eigentlich damit zu tun gehabt. Das war eine ganz starke Entlastungsfunktion, die Heinrich da übernommen hat für den Rest der Familie. Und ich denke mal, dass also nicht nur einerseits war es so, dass mein Vater sehr früh, sehr offen gesprochen hat über die familiäre Konstellation, über die Tatsache, dass Heinrich Himmler sein Onkel war, sein Patenonkel sogar, und dass er schreckliche Verbrechen begangen hat. Und es war für mich sehr früh klar als Kind, dass es eine sehr große Belastung ist, eine emotionale Belastung für ihn und damit auch für mich oder für uns, dass wir verwandtschaftlich in so einer Nähe zu diesem Verbrecher stehen, zu diesem Massenmörder. Das habe ich immer als belastendes Gefühl in Erinnerung gehabt. Und es war eigentlich auch so, dass meine Schwester und ich als Kinder immer dieses Gefühl hatten, so wie gut, dass wir nur Mädchen sind in der Familie, dann wird der Name Himmler irgendwann aussterben bei uns. Also es war für uns wichtig, dass der irgendwann verschwindet aus der Familie, dass der quasi gelöscht wird.